Tomatoes are by far one of the most popular veggies to grow in your garden every year. With over 10,000 varieties, yes, 10,000, it can be overwhelming and also very tempting to buy all kinds of tomatoes. Looking through a seed catalog or scrolling online, it can be tempting just to buy all of the pretty tomatoes. There's your yellow ones, red ones, orange ones, purple ones, green ones. So it can be tempting. But if you don't choose the right tomato for your purposes, it could actually end up in a lot of disappointment or even worse, a big mess. So in this video, we're going to look at the factors you need to consider before you buy your tomatoes for the garden this year. I'd like to welcome you to my backyard Kentucky homestead. My name is Kim. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video and find it helpful, please give me a thumbs up and hit the like button. I'd appreciate it. As with most veggies, starting your own from seed has a lot of advantages. The first, of course, is cost. While there is a little initial investment in getting the right trays and pots and maybe grow lights, probably grow lights, which I'll link to a video that I did on how I built my DIY grow light station. While there are some initial costs, this savings overall long term, especially as you continue to garden for years to come, it just increases. The ROI just improves and gets bigger and bigger. I looked at Lowe's just this weekend, and the plants are $5 or $6 a piece, where I can get a packet of seed for $2 or $3, maybe $4, get 25 to 50 seeds. So the scale is just amazing how much you can save by starting your own. Another advantage is the variety. As I said, there are over 10,000 tomatoes to choose from. So you can have ones that suit your needs if you go and you look for them. The third benefit is that you know how they were grown. I choose to garden organically. I don't want a lot of pesticides and other stuff on my tomatoes or any of the veggies. So if I grow them myself, I know how they were raised. They also tend to be healthier because you're caring for them the entire span of their life. If you visit a big box store, you're going to be lucky as far as variety goes to get maybe 6 or 10 varieties. You might see early girl, celebrity, beefsteak, big boy, better boy, a cherry tomato. So you don't have a whole lot of variety, and usually everyone has the same stuff because they're coming from the same growers. With seeds, you have unlimited varieties, pretty much. There's no way a home gardener could grow 10,000 different tomatoes. Each tomato has different characteristics. Some are fruitier, some are more acidic, some are sweeter. What is it that you want for your taste? What is it that you want for your use? So that brings us into the first factor you want to consider. How will you use the tomato? For this video, we are going to break it down into 5 categories. So while all of the tomatoes can be used for any of these applications, some of them lend themselves to one use better than another. For example, the first one is sauce. If you're going to make sauce, you will probably want to choose a Roma or paste type tomato. They have less liquid in them, so will take less time to render down to a thicker sauce base. You could use other slicer tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes, or hybrid, any of them. But you will have tomato water for quite a lot longer time while all of that liquid evaporates. So the second use that you need to consider, are you going to can the tomatoes? Again, if you want to can sauce, you're going to use a paste or aroma tomato for best results. If you're going to do crushed, diced, or whole, you can use any of them very easily. The third traditional application is for salads or snacking. For those, a recommendation is to use grape or cherry tomatoes just for the size and the ease. For a snack, you can just grab a bunch and go. For the salad, you can just throw them on there and go. Again, you can use any tomatoes you want, but these are the ones that tend to lend themselves better for this application. The next one is sandwiches. Again, you can use any of them you want, but beefsteak, the larger slicer tomatoes, are going to be better for use on the sandwich because it just holds together better. And then the fifth sort of application is fried green tomatoes. Generally, those are going to be their larger slicers. They're going to be used when they're green. They're not ripe, just so that they hold together better. I am curious, though. They do have a tomato that is still green when it's ripe. I'm going to grow one of those just to try it. And I'm really wondering if it is usable for fried green tomatoes when it is ripe, or if it'll get that softer texture which is probably the case. But we're going to try that later on in the season and see how it goes. The second factor you need to consider is how much space you have to grow. Tomatoes grow at different rates, need different types of support. So this leads into the growth habit of the type that you will choose. There are 3 basic types of tomatoes. There's indeterminate, determinate, and semi-determinate. Indeterminate tend to grow all year, at least until frost, or they get sick. Hopefully they won't. They can get 8 to 10 feet tall easily. They continue to grow throughout the season. They will continue to set fruit throughout the season, and it will come in, slowly throughout the whole summer. Determinate is more of a bush style, so it's just going to be a shorter plant, maybe 3 to 4 feet tall. Generally, they set their fruit all at once, and then they will be ready for harvest all at about the same time. And then your semi-determinate are ones that are kind of bush size, so they don't need quite as much structure, but they will continue to make fruit most of the year. The one factor with setting fruit is that tomatoes, when it gets to be about 95 or higher, will stop setting fruit until it cools back down. So in that case, you might want to put some shade cloth over it, but that's for a different video. So we'll get to that later. So with indeterminate tomatoes, they need more trellising. So that brings us into the third factor. How are you going to support your tomatoes? You figured out what you want to use them for. You figured out where you're going to have them. How are you going to support them? As I said, indeterminate tomatoes need a lot more trellising. You can have tomato cages, which there's a lot of variety to choose from, and some of them will work. Those cylindrical, very thin metal ones that you can buy at Home Depot, I'll put a picture on the screen. Those are not good for indeterminate tomatoes. Indeterminate will get too large, their fruit will be too heavy, and the tomato will just fall over. So you'll end up on the ground in a big mess. Determinate could use those. The cylindricals, those wire cages, pretty good for peppers too. That's probably more efficient for peppers than tomatoes. But with indeterminate, your options are using a cage. There is one I used last year that has garden stakes, poles that you can put together, picture on the screen, and they have clip-on supports that go around the sides. And that works out really well. If you're gone for a couple of days and you have a tomato branch that just kind of goes wild out to the side and you're like, it's outside the support, it needs to be inside. There's no way with a solid support or a solid structure that you can bend that inside that support without breaking the tomato. But with this one I was using, it actually has clip-ons, so you can unclip it, put that tomato branch back up, and then clip it back in, and then it support it. So those are very efficient, very, very easy to use. You can also make those into any shape you want because you're literally just clicking them together. So you could have a square, you could have a pentagram, you could have a triangle, whatever works, and you can make it taller and taller. Last year, I also used obelisk, which were very effective. You can get them from Home Depot. I'll link below the ones I got. You put them together, tomato grows through it. It worked really, really well. Third option is just using a simple bamboo stake or some type of tall garden stake. Some of these are going to require more pruning than others, which we'll get to that here in a minute. But it is an option. You would just tie it up to the stake as it grows taller and taller. The option that I chose for last year and will be repeating is to do a vertical string trellising. So you would have posts on either end, cross beam, and then some kind of loop with string that comes down from the top. And then you use little clips to clip the tomato to that string as it grows. I use T-posts. You can use wood beams. You could do a permanent structure. You could do a temporary structure. You could use PVC pipe. You could use electrical conduit. Anything that's stable enough and strong enough to hold the weight of those tomatoes. So my plan is to have 8 tomatoes, 4 on each side, in a 6.5 by 3.5 bed. I'll have 2 T-posts on each corner, a crossbar that goes across horizontally, and then I will use shower curtain rings to then hang my hook on with the string coming down. Worked really, really well last year, so I plan to do this year. That does bring us into the fourth consideration. How are you going to prune your indeterminate. You don't want to prune determinate tomatoes, and you do not want to prune semi-determinate tomatoes. So the indeterminate are the only ones you would want to consider pruning. Now I have heard, and did this last year, you don't prune your cherry tomatoes. They will get huge, they will grow and grow and grow. The black cherry tomato last year was, in Sweet 100 and Sweetie, I had 3 of them. Amazing. They did start getting a little damage from disease and the heat in the middle of the summer, but when it cooled down in September, had we not had a frost, those things would have kept growing. They were putting on new growth, new tomatoes. It was amazing. So for pruning an indeterminate, you will want to consider how much. If you live in a very hot, humid climate, mine is fairly hot. It is definitely humid in the summer. You will probably want to have more airspace, airflow around your tomatoes. So you'll want to, I started last year with doing a single leader. So I would cut all of the suckers off as they grew out. Eventually I missed a few, so I had 2 or 3 leaders. And then I eventually just gave up on it and just let it go wild. With a single leader system, you will get fewer tomatoes, but they will be larger. So it's a matter of where you live, your environment, and how many tomatoes you want and how big you want them to be. So my plan this year is to go with I'm going to give more space in between my tomatoes, and I'm going to go with a double to maybe a triple leader on each one. I'm going to do 16 indeterminate plants, 8 in each of 2 beds, and I'm going to do another bed of 8 determinate tomatoes. So those will need a different trellising system, the determinate ones. Also, I'll be able to cycle those out and plant something new in there come mid-July, mid to late July. Another thing to consider with determinate tomatoes is that they are really, really, really good for your fall harvest. So what you want to do, if you want to have tomatoes late in the season, after all of your ones that you planted earlier have started to have some issues with disease, they've started to die off, may have had to pull them already, go ahead and set up some determinates that you can plant in July. So I'm going to start a round of determinate tomatoes in late May. I'm going to start them inside. I started them outside last year and I ended up frying them. So I'm going to not do that. I'm going to keep them inside where I have more control over the atmosphere and the climate that they're in. But I'm going to start them in late May. I'm going to plant them out in early to mid-July. And then by late September to early October, I should have a flush of tomatoes again, which will be awesome. So we've talked about how you're going to use them. We've talked about where you're going to plant it. We talked about how you're going to trellis them, how you're going to prune them. Now let's talk about planting. You should start your tomatoes 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. If your last frost is the end of April, very beginning of May, you'll want to get your tomato seeds planted by the middle of March. So it's about that time. I'm currently about 7 weeks out from my first frost. Let me share with you the varieties that I plan on planting this season. So just really quickly, I'm going to show you how to plant the tomato seeds. I have planted most of what I'm going to plant for myself and to share with others already. So I had an extra special request for the pink oxheart tomatoes. So I'm going to plant a few extra of these. I'll show you on the back when to start it, how long it takes to germinate, the spacing. If you're planting it in beds, you can get away with about 18 inches in between. The plant spacing for the 36 inches is more for farming. So if you're trying to get equipment down in between the rows, or you just need more space in between, but we can get away with doing 18 inches in between. I'm going to do 2 feet the other direction. And then these are going to be full sun. I don't think I said it earlier. Tomatoes need at least 6 to 8 hours of sun each day. So they need to have a lot of sun in a really well-drained area. When you're watering tomatoes, they need to be watered maybe a couple times a week, but they like a deep, thorough watering, not a lot of short, just top-level watering. You need to get down deep into the roots. And then we're going to plant these 1/8 of an inch deep. So what I'm going to do is going to make, and I'm using, it's not sponsored, I'm using the Burpee Organic Seed Starting Mix. It does have some nutrients in it already. I used it last year and this year, and I've had really good results with it. So I'm going to make 2 small holes in each of the cells. So we're going to put 1 in each of the holes. I had to get a different brand because my gardener didn't have any available. And your seeds will last several years, especially tomato seeds that can last 4 or 5 years easily. The germination rate does slowly diminish, but not very quickly. Pelleted seeds, usually you have 1 year, and carrots and onion seeds are a shorter germination period. Their viability is a shorter germination period. So you'll want to use onions pretty much the year you get them, and pelleted seeds as well. Just cover these up. Got some vermiculite. I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top. It helps to maintain the moisture level and to prevent algae growth and also fungus gnat invasion. So I moved my seeds so I wouldn't get them wet because I'm going to use a spray bottle and just wet everything in well. And I had pre-moistened the seed starting mix. Okay. Then we will put a humidity dome on top of that, and we should have germination in 5 to 7 days. So let me take you into the grow room and show you the tomatoes I already have started. Right. So here are the tomatoes that I started about a week ago. Got a whole bunch of different varieties. Most of them have 2 tomatoes per cell. So I will have to definitely pot those before they're ready to go out. And here's the pink oxheart that we just planted. And if you're interested, got a whole bunch of pansies down here. Some more brassicas that aren't ready to go out yet. And then a whole bunch of flowers. Got greater quaking grass, linaria, strawberry field comfrena, Rudbeckia marmalade, bunny grass, or bunny tails grass. We have a whole bunch of celery back there, and then more flowers. And our lemon tree, Meyer lemon, has a whole bunch of blooms getting ready to open. And I think I'm not sure if you can see it. All right back here. I think I might actually have 2 lemons growing. Very excited about that. And up here are the peppers that we started a couple weeks ago. Had pretty good germination on everything but King of the North. I think I'm going to restart that. This is our Heliopsis and also some pentas. It was a flower I found at Lowe's last year. Just absolutely loved it. So I tried to collect seeds and it's just gone crazy. So we're going to thin that out here soon. Got more dahlias, our Dusty Miller, Lens Salvia, Russian Status, and several different colors of snapdragons. I have a whole bunch of basil growing, and then we have a orange Mavic geranium, which I have more of those started here somewhere. up here. There we go. Some more orange maverick geraniums. Also have a really beautiful begonia. Most of those haven't sprouted yet. We have some younger pansies. We have some black-eyed Susan, some lobelia, and some Canterbury bells. Some peppers that I started a couple weeks ago. Some more brassicas. I have way too many brassicas. More flowers started. And then we have Gara. We have more pansies, more dahlias. We have some lisianthus. Out of 150, I might get 20. I'm not sure if I'm going to try that again next year or not. Down here, we have a whole slew of dwarf snapdragons that I just uppotted yesterday. So those are doing beautifully. We have the micro tomatoes that are growing, the dwarf tomatoes, and some cucumbers, and another dwarf tomato, or another micro tomato. Hopefully this gave you some good information to get started in choosing your tomatoes for this year. If you did find it helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe and watch for my next video. So thank you again. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.